Hello and welcome to Rose Red Homestead, where today we're going to be continuing our series on food storage sweets. So today, by popular demand, we are going to be doing sugar-free pound cake. And this pound cake, like all of our food storage sweets, depends on having the right ingredients ready to go in our food storage. So what might those ingredients be for this recipe? Most of them are pretty common. We'll need to have flour stored, and we do. We have a lot of flour stored. We would need some butter. Well, butter is not exactly shelf stable, but ghee is. And we have a couple of videos on how to make ghee. And ghee is butter with the milk solids removed, and it can be used in place of butter in just about every single thing I've ever tried. So we have a year's supply of ghee out just sitting in our garage. It does not need refrigeration, and it is very shelf stable. So we need a couple of extracts, vanilla and almond extract. Extracts store for a really long time as well. We need salt, a good solid food storage item. Soda, likewise. Sour cream. Well, in our series on how to use powdered milk, we learned how to use a cultured sour cream like this Tillamook brand is to make sour cream out of fat-free milk solids, in other words, out of powdered milk. And so we could have, if we have powdered milk, and if we keep this a culture of this going, we can also have sour cream. Then, for most of our recipes, regular sugar is what we would store. But for sugar-free, we need a sugar alternative. And I know many of you know a lot more about sugar alternatives than I do. This is Swerve. It's fairly new to the market. It gets rave reviews. You can use any sugar alternative that you can substitute 1-to-1 with regular sugar. Another one would be Splenda. This recipe comes from an internet site called the Sugar Free Diva, and I am going to put the link to this recipe there instead of having the recipe itself there, so that you can go to her site and read all of the explanations that she gives, which are excellent as far as I'm concerned. I gained a little bit of an education on sugar-free things by reading through the comments that she had. So the last thing is we'll need some shelf-stable eggs, and you can either buy powdered eggs and keep them on your shelf, or if you have a freeze dryer, you can use freeze-dried. These happen to be freeze-dried, or maybe these are dehydrated, I don't remember. It just says whole eggs. And so I have a video on freeze-drying and dehydrating whole eggs. With a dehydrator, you need to be extraordinarily careful. So just be sure that you pay close attention to the instructions in that video if you're going to use a dehydrator and not a freeze dryer. First thing that we're going to do is reconstitute the eggs. Sometimes I add eggs along with the dry ingredients, but for a pound cake, we need to add those eggs and beat them in until it gets nice and creamy and smooth. So 6 eggs, which is 3/4 of a cup. I use 2 tablespoons of egg powder per egg, and I do that 1-to-1 with water. So 3/4 of a cup of those powdered eggs with 3/4 of a cup of water. And we're just going to quickly mix these. And the recipe calls for real eggs. The recipe is not made for food storage. It's for regular ingredients. So you can use regular butter and regular eggs. If you, I've just changed this a little bit so that we can use our food storage ingredients, but it would be a simple switch if that's what you would like to do. Okay, then it calls for us to put the dry ingredients into a separate bowl. So I'm going to be measuring 3 cups of flour, 1 teaspoon of soda, and a half teaspoon of salt. And then we're going to whisk these dry ingredients together. And we are going to start now on the ingredients that go in our regular bowl. So we're going to start with 1 cup of butter. Now this, of course, as I've said, is ghee, and it calls for 1 cup of butter. A cup is all the way up to the top here. So I have my little standby jar here, and I'm going to add enough to bring it up to the top of the jar. It is going to be going in our mixing bowl. And we're going to put our beaters in. And we're going to turn it on. We're now going to beat this butter for a few minutes until it becomes light and fluffy all on its own. All right, that didn't take long with ghee. With regular butter, it would take longer than this. Next, we are going to open up our swerve. And I was shocked at the price for this.
$10.
$10 for this bag. So it takes 2.5 cups of the sugar alternative. So there's 1, there's 2, and a half. So there's about this much left. So this step is essential to get these light and creamy. And then we add the eggs one at a time. So here's 6 eggs, one at a time. And I'm going to scrape down the sides. This is blending pretty well. Now I'm going to turn it down, and we are going to add the flour gradually. Again, I'm scraping. It's become quite a bit more stiff, of course. We are adding 1 cup of sour cream. This is my favorite sour cream. And when you make it from this culture with powdered milk, it keeps the lovely taste that this brand has. And we're going to add this. And I'm going to turn the oven on. It is preheating up to 325. And then I'm going to add the extracts. And it is a teaspoon of each, almond and vanilla. Now we're going to mix just until it's beaten, until it's mixed. and scrape. All right, and then that is good enough. We're going to lift this off. And I am going to give it another little mixing in here. You can bake this in a loaf pan, or you can use a bundt pan. The Sugar-Free Diva prefers to do it in a bundt pan, and so do I. Here it is, ready to go into the oven. It goes in for 70 to 90 minutes until a toothpick inserted in the middle comes out almost clean. So we will be back when it's coming out of the oven. Well, it has just come out of the oven. And after 60 minutes, I tested it, and this was the toothpick. If you can see, there's still quite a bit of dough stuck to it. So I gave it another 10 minutes, and this was the toothpick. And so the toothpick came out pretty clean. The downside is I could smell that it's getting pretty brown. Now it's been out now for about 5 minutes. After it's out for about 15 minutes, I'm going to turn it out onto the rack, let it cool some more, and then we will bring you back for a taste test. So we'll see you then. Well, I was just going to give this a dusting of powdered sugar the way I usually do with other things, and then I remembered, oh no, it's sugar-free, it's sugar-free, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just instead going to cut into it. It's been cooling for about 15 minutes, and according to the directions, it should not be served until it's completely cool, but we're going to try it anyway. It turned out absolutely beautiful. Oh, there's some little brown spots in there. I wonder if that's I'm not sure what that is. I wonder if it is the sugar that has maybe turned brown a little bit in the baking. So let's taste it to see what it's like. Well, that bite was okay. Let me get in here where this brown is. It tastes just fine, but let me cut a larger piece here.
Yeah, I was just looking at that.
So we can see the inside. It's browned right here. I was smelling that it may have gotten a little bit over brown in the baking. So that is a new one on me. So, and it tastes great. It tastes just fine, and it looks beautiful. And so I don't see any problem with serving it at all. Those of you that have much more experience than I do with sugar-free baking might want to chime in with your ideas on why that might have happened, and also what other sugar substitutes you might use in this recipe. And that way, for those of us that have less experience, and I'm sure there are plenty of others with the same curiosity that I have, it would be very helpful if people could chime in on what may have caused this and maybe how to avoid it next time. But I did follow her directions in terms of how long to bake the cake, and she didn't mention anything about it turning browner. So I don't know if Splenda would have done the same thing, but chime in. Let's help each other, and let's see what we can figure out with this. So actually, it was an adventure for me. I have never really baked anything sugar-free like that. And so it was a new experience for me, and I quite enjoyed it. So I hope this video is helpful to you, and thanks so much for being a part of our community. We just have the best community. And we will see you shortly for more videos.